The Season 2 premiere of Hot D was pretty good. Not as good as the Season 1 premiere, but still a really solid first episode, wedged between two underwhelming scenes that dragged the episode down a little bit for me. I'll probably split this review between talking about the blacks and the greens, but first let's chat about that new intro. I really enjoyed it. A colourful tapestry of Targaryen history was far more visually interesting than the murky sludge sliding down a board game in Season 1. Make no mistake, it's nowhere near as dynamic as that original Game of Thrones intro, and the unveiling of the tapestry scenes doesn't quite match the pace of the music, but I also think it's going to update over time with major events. I would like original music, but at this point we've got to accept that the famous Game of Thrones theme is kind of like the Star Wars theme now. You know, it's the theme, maybe for every Westerosi show. So let's start with Team Black, showing off Winterfell and the Wall, invoking that nostalgia. The new piece of info about 1 in 10 Starks drawing rocks to see who goes to the Night's Watch is really fun world building. I wonder if it comes from Ryan or George himself. It's outrageous that they cast a 23-year-old to play a 23-year-old. Cregan Stark has a great northern accent and looks perfect with the long Stark face. And Jace looks perfect serving face. Looking like a male model. He just pouts in every scene, it's so funny. And he finally has Harwin's hair. The curls have been unleashed. I wonder if the gamer slouch will return. The falcon in the room is, of course, why did they skip Jace's trip to the Eyrie? I really assumed this season would be Jace's expedition, learning to become a diplomat, dealing with Lady Jane Arryn, maybe negotiating with the Royces who despised Daemon for killing Rhea Royce, moving on to the north, developing a bromance with Cregan, maybe throwing in Sarah Snow, maybe not. But instead, the north trip is a single scene. I think there are two reasons for this. For one, HBO did cut the show from 10 episodes to 8 episodes, and supposedly this was not a creative choice, according to Sarah Hess. And the other reason is thematic. The timing allows for Jace to return to Lucerys' funeral. Either way, I do hope that Jace is given interesting stuff to do this season to justify this strange decision. So why did I find this opening scene kinda underwhelming? For me, the dialogue felt very clunky and exposition-y. It reminded me of the weaker moments from the Season 1 premiere. You need strong actors to pull that stuff off, and I think Harry Collette and Tom Taylor were kind of awkward in their delivery, they had zero chemistry, and they looked kinda uncomfortable delivering their lines. The whole intro had me worried about the rest of the episode, honestly. But I didn't need to worry. Like I said, it turned out to be a good episode. Let's talk about Daemon next. He's an angry tiger, prowling Dragonstone looking for a fight, lashing out at everyone because, as Mysaria says, the real source of his anger is out of his grasp. He wants to kill Vhagar, he insults Rhaenys for not killing the High Towers, he roasts Ser Erryk for not assassinating Aegon when he had the chance, he locks up Mysaria for selling secrets to Otto. Matt Smith has such an intense physicality to his performance. The way he swaggers, the way he slinks away after insulting Erryk, the way he touches his forehead to Rhaenyra's. He's a dangerous hound begging to be let off the leash. And off the leash he is let, hiring Mr. Blood and Cheese himself. But we'll talk more about that later. Corlys has a small role in this episode. Can I just say, the wigs and the costumes have improved massively. The drip is immaculate. Like, oh my god, actual colour. He's wearing blue, he's boasting his sigil on his chest. Even skipping to the council scene, Tyland is wearing red and gold instead of black. Holy shit, why was this so hard to do? See, I think Season 8 has genuinely made me allergic to the colour black. Look, the only characters allowed to wear black are Team Black and people in mourning. Alan isn't in the episode for long, but he already has gravitas and screen presence. It will be fun to watch his story unfold this season. There are two MVPs this episode, and one of them is Rhaenyra. She only has one line the entire episode, yet her presence is not wasted once. It kind of reminds me of Daemon in episode 3 of Season 1. He doesn't speak at all during that final chunk of the episode. Rhaenyra's grief is palpable, both grounded and ethereal. A highlight of the episode has to be Rhaenyra giving a mother's embrace to Jacaerys. They both do a fantastic job in that scene. Oh, and Mysaria's back. Hooray. The accent has been massively toned down, so now I can treat her as a character and not a giant meme. I hope she's properly going to join Team Black and become Rhaenyra's Laris, you know. Finally, I want to bring up Rhaenys. I really hope the show brings up the girl boss massacre of episode 9 at some point. We do have Daemon bringing up the fact that she spared the High Towers, which feels like the writers acknowledging the controversy, but that wasn't the main controversy. That made sense, honestly. What people took issue with, myself included, was Rhaenys uncharacteristically and unnecessarily murdering a bunch of civilians. Can we please address it and, not try to pretend it didn't happen? Right, let's move on to Team Green now, over in King's Landing. The blacks are pretty cool characters, but boy, I just prefer the greens so much more. They're way more dynamic, dysfunctional, weird. I love it. I'm calling them weird as if the other side doesn't have someone married to her uncle who murdered his previous wife with a rock. Oh wow, so nice of Qyburn to travel back in time and offer his unique dragon-slaying invention. I've gotta say, I'm such a sucker for council scenes, and petition scenes, characters discussing alliances and diplomacy, troop movements, all of that stuff. The later seasons of Game of Thrones just kind of abandoned this. Like, well, what even is this? What is this map? Discussing the logistics of this budding war really helps to ground it. The dragons are being taken seriously as weapons of mass destruction. There are defences on the battlements, there's genuine fear among the guards. There are discussions of how and when to use them. Otto and Alicent clearly see them as a defensive measure and a last resort, while Aegon and Aemond want to use them offensively. Criston talks about building their levies with crownland houses. Aemond brings up Harrenhal as a toehold into the Riverlands, and the nation of Thailand mentions the Lannister forces amassing at the Golden Tooth, while Otto discusses the Hightower army at Old Town. I hope Otto gives a PowerPoint presentation with this risk map every episode. Also, it was cool to hear him name drop his nephew, Lord Ormond Hightower. Rest in peace, my boy Hobart, I guess. Still no Daeron mention though? Come on, give us anything, please. Give us the scraps. Now, we all know how awesome the set design is, and the costumes, and the props, and the cinematography, and so on. I especially loved this kinetic shot of the shadows moving across the wall after Blood drops his torch, but I really want to focus on how the council scene was written and directed. In Season 1, side characters were introduced poorly. They're constantly being interrupted while trying to make a point, and the camera kept snapping away from them, preventing the audience from getting to know them. Here, however, the camera is actually lingering on the likes of Ironrod and Orwyle and Thailand, and they're being given memorable things to say and do. It looks like Mr. Lannister is being set up as the comic relief of Team Green, which is kind of funny considering what the role he goes on to play. Also, the steed joke, the horse, Tyler Lannister horse joke. Ryan, please. There's no way Glidus has directly influenced House of the Dragon with his shitposting. Otto continues to be a severely underrated character and performance. Rhys Ifans has literally disappeared into the role. Aemond has strong parallels to Daemon in this episode, not just obsessing over Harrenhal and strategy, but being aggressive, proactive, gnawing at his leash like an angry hound. Larys is cooking as usual. I love his actor and I love his character, but I do think he seems a bit too obvious in his scheming sometimes. Not show Littlefinger levels of obvious, like it doesn't feel like parody, but it is a bit on the nose. Like there's no way Aegon isn't suspicious of him. In my post-episode livestream with Quinn the GM, every Monday by the way, he pointed out Larys's change in posture. Around Alicent he stands tall and straight. He's taken control of the situation and surrounded her with his agents, while around Aegon he's hunched and making himself smaller. He's a parasite draining his victims of whatever gets him more power and satisfaction, before leaping onto the next host. That new host is Aegon. I do hope we see him encounter some obstacles though. While it's fun to watch an evil schemer succeed, it's not satisfying if there's zero resistance. Speaking of Alicent, I loved the bath scene, a perfect example of showing and not telling, which TV shows really struggle to do nowadays for some reason. She does not explicitly say anything, but we know she both feels guilty due to the Lady Macbeth style scrubbing, and that she mistrusts her new staff by ordering them to leave, having been sitting naked and vulnerable in their presence. Her relationship with Criston adds something spicy to their dynamic, and shows off their hypocrisy. To quote my friend Quinn, I wonder if they both shout Rhaenyra's name. Also, please give Criston an actual Kingmaker moment in this show. Don't call him Kingmaker just because he literally put a crown on Aegon's head. That's dumb. That's dumb. Have a scene where Aegon wants to abdicate, especially after Blood and Cheese, and then Criston pushes him to stay or something. Okay, I've ignored Aegon for long enough. He is, of course, the star of the episode alongside Rhaenyra, for wildly different reasons. I generally found him really likeable and funny this episode. This is exactly the Aegon we should have got in Season 1. Spoiled, incompetent, drunk, insecure, not a literal monster. I'm glad they've course corrected here. It would have been lazy to make him a new Joffrey. It's far more interesting to have this new king obsessed with being loved, happy to help the small folk without realising the ramifications of his actions. I also like that the show gave him 3 friends to bounce off of. He loves to banter with them and drink with them and go to Nando's on a Friday with them. They're not in Fire and Blood, so it'll be fun to see what they get up to. I'll be giving more detailed thoughts about these characters in my Sunday predictions livestream. Finally, let's move on to the controversial ending. Controversial for 2 reasons, I guess. For casual viewers, it was brutal, but for book readers, it wasn't brutal enough. Personally, I have mixed feelings on these Blood and Cheese fellas. First off, I enjoyed the concept of Rhaenyra demanding Aemon's death, and Daemon taking matters into his own hands. Rhaenyra being directly involved in the child assassination was never really on the table for me, and Daemon having the initial goal of killing the kinslaying owner of a giant green nuke makes more sense than his entire plan being the murder of a child just for the sake of revenge. His son for a son command is ambiguous, but does not absolve him of what happens. Clearly he wanted someone dead. Aemond was target number 1, but he gave the green light for any son to be killed. Secondly, the actors were great. Blood was a hulking orc with a gravelly voice, and Cheese was a little goblin man, although he didn't need the beard. I'm not a nitpick guy, I'm not Cinema Sins, I'm not Preston Jacobs, but goddamn remove the beard. I prefer a clean-shaven rat catcher, thank you very much. I don't even know what point I'm making. Thirdly, the logistics of the duo entering the castle was fun. It was atmospheric and the tension built up nicely. I appreciate the pathetic fallacy too. My main criticism to this aspect would be the lack of guards and servants. They should have been milling about in the background at least, to add to the realism. So I enjoyed everything leading up to the scene, but then we got to the scene itself. So let's explore this, because I have mixed opinions. Ultimately, while I do appreciate the directing and the acting, I did find myself underwhelmed as a book reader. Just to clarify, changes from the source material, especially source material as vague as Fire and Blood, is not inherently good or bad. It depends on what is changed. The petition of the Silent Five and Viserys' celebratory feast from the book were merged and transformed into the best episode of Season 1. Meanwhile, the Green Council was twisted into something rushed, awkward, and disappointing. I'm also fine with Alicent not being involved. Like, she doesn't need to be there. She's gonna feel plenty grief and trauma enough knowing that she was busy riding the Dornish D while her grandson was murdered, as if her relationship with sex wasn't traumatic enough. I'm also fine with the kill happening off screen. In fact, I always assumed it would be that way. Not because I can't handle violence, but because I thought it would be far more chilling to leave it up to the audience's imagination, and the sound effects they used were excellent. And I also enjoyed Helena's acting. Fia Saban is playing a character that's clearly autistic coded. The way she silently shuts down while her eyes fill with tears and horror, it was a very realistic portrayal of a neurodivergent person in a traumatic situation. In this context, a dramatic scream or something may have been a bit too Hollywood, you know? But here are my issues. The crux of the moment, the Sophie's choice, is lost. In Fire and Blood, Helena is forced to choose between her sons Jaehaerys and Maelor. She chooses Maelor, but they kill Jaehaerys nonetheless. It's such a dramatic, impactful, vile act. Removing the choice just makes it a horrific scene and not the horrific scene of the season. It should be something strongly associated with the brutality of the Dance of the Dragons, not just one shocking moment among many that happens at the end of an episode. I know Maelor was cut, but even so, you can still adapt the choice. What if Helena chooses Jaehaerys, but then Jaehaerys instead is killed because he's a son? I also thought that Helena not offering herself was very strange. In the book, she offers herself and Blood replies, "You're not a son." And here she offers her necklace and Blood replies, "A necklace is not a son." Like, why? Well, what a strange choice. I've seen mothers saying that they would have offered literally anything to save their kids in this situation, including their own lives. So why doesn't Helena? Why was that moment actively removed and replaced with something else? I genuinely can't find a way to justify that. The scene ends with Helena awkwardly picking up Jaehaerys and running away to interrupt Alicent giving Kristen that high tussie. For me, that was unnecessary. Like, the ending would have hit more if she was cradling her daughter in the corner of the room with those horrible sounds in the background and then we cut to black. I will say this, at first I was baffled by her pointing to her son, and then Blood thinks it's a bluff, but then Cheese realises it isn't a bluff. I didn't get the intention there, but I think the idea is that Helena, as a dreamer and probably a neurodivergent person, is just on another wavelength to everyone else. Her instinct is not to point to the daughter because she's less important, it's to point to the son because they ordered her to point to the son, and the alternative was that they'd all die. She's not playing politics or mind games in this moment, that's not who she is. I have to admit, the succession crisis this creates is intriguing. Without Maelor existing, Aegon has a daughter and a younger dangerous brother, so who is the heir? He's in exactly the same situation as Viserys in the premiere of Season 1. Quinn actually has a great video about this succession crisis on his channel, so go and check that one out. That was my Haven Quickie. I give a son for a son 7 blood drops out of 10 wheels of cheese. Not as good as the Season 1 premiere, but still damn good television. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because I know this was a controversial episode. Every Thursday, I'll be releasing Haven Quickies reviewing each episode. I do Sunday prediction streams before each episode airs, and Monday post-episode breakdowns with Quinn the GM, sometimes on my channel, sometimes on his channel. There will be animated content dropping as well. Next week, the real blood and cheese. If you enjoyed this review, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Feel free to check out the Patreon and the merch store if you want to support the channel. On the Patreon, we do Discord episode watch-alongs on Tuesdays and Patreon-only live streams on Wednesdays. If you want to learn about Viserys Targaryen from Fire and Blood, check out The Real Viserys. Special thanks to my highest tier patrons: Alex, Andre, Boombler, Caden, Colshot, Devcole, and Loopsie. See you next time.